And then Batman and Robin, they're trying to find their way out in the sewers, and then they come up on a big revelation where now that Batman's not under the drugs, they find Blackfire's totem, which is like this, I don't know, short little totem. It's not like the big thing with eyes and moving head and talking to him and stuff. It's more just a stump.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Batman, he knows that he was a con man before, but this was even showing how far out, he was under the effect of whatever he was given. And, he says, all a trick. Then we get an assassination attempt on Gordon. He takes a direct hit, and the guy's just standing over him with a video camera.
Yeah, that's disturbingly accurate, though, Yeah, if it happened today, it would be everyone standing around pointing their phones at him.
Yeah.
You start seeing things in the pages like this that you're like, I saw that in Dark Knight, the movie.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
When Joker, whatever, was dressed as a cop and assassinated Gordon.
Where Batman was down in the sewers, beaten and broken. That's a lot like Dark Knight Rises, where he was down in that hole.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan took a lot from and that was cool to see. See him take a lot from the books and put them on film like that. Then we get to see Blackfire bathing in blood.
That's insane.
This is fucking nuts.
Yeah,
this is Anthony's favorite part for sure.
Dude,
that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
and shirt off and everything.
And he's not just. It doesn't just have him, in a tub of blood or something. He's actually got the hacked open bodies hanging there, bleeding into this little thing,
getting drained.
Right.
Insane.
He's jacked for sure.
Man, you know what's crazy?
He's getting high off the blood.
This is 1988, and people fucking going nuts about a dick. Like there's hanging bodies, there's hanging dead bodies with slit throats, and their blood draining on this one thing, and you're like, and people went crazy about a dick. Are you kidding me? Guys, wake, fucking penis. Jesus Christ, guys, wake up.
Yeah, but. Also, it's like this is very reminiscent of like what Robin was saying. Like, there's a strong correlation with like Ra's al Ghul. Like, this is his eternal pit. Yeah. This is Lazarus pit. This is where he kind of rejuvenates and kind of like recalibrates of his strength. So kind of just feeding off of his victims and just that endless amount of blood just coming in. Like this really makes him like very supernatural when you see who he is, In
a way, the religious way is the eternal life, blood. I guess in Christian and Catholic beliefs, is like when you take Jesus' blood, it symbolizes eternal life. So as he mentions it, that's what he's going through.
Yeah, this is his communion.
Yeah, that's right.
Over and over and over.
True.
And Batman and Robin,
wine,
Batman and Robin they've snuck around and they're seeing this. And this kind of reminds me of like that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they're watching, the ceremony over the top, and then leave it to Robin to find the one empty can in the whole tunnel and step on it. And give them away. And then we got a chase going on, and then we have a TV news anchor going on talking basically directly to Deacon Blackfire about how he's doing these terrible things, and he's wrestling control away from actual government, and he's a criminal, and the police and National Guard are going to be coming in, and Deacon Blackfire has people in every corner of the city, and they shoot him on live TV. I mean, look at that page right there.
Yeah. Nice.
Dude, yeah. You don't see things like this in comics today.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good, just before this TV thing starts, Batman and Robin escaping the tunnels, and Batman essentially quits. Yeah. He knows I'm in no shape for this. It's up for Robin to get us out of here. Not Robin Cross. I'm all used up. There's no fight. To me, it's useless. Just before that murder scene happens in the thing, it's like, wow, Batman just quit. Like, this guy is, like, he's toast at this point. And then they go through the whole murder scene.
Yeah.
On national TV, which is fucking, nuts.
Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah, Murray, yeah.
Dude, I mean, that scene right there, that panel, I'm like, my God, he literally blew blood and brains against this panel.
The camera, and then
Yeah. Then on the table.
So now Batman and the underworld, big fight scene, and Robin's having to, step up, and I think he enjoys it, but for a while.
That's my favorite panel.
Yeah, Batman's just not even doing anything.
Yeah, Robin says that's the last of the smoke and whatever, and what now? And then Batman says, don't know. And Robin's like, oh, it's time to get radical. And,
Yeah.
on the next
all
page,
right, you sorry clowns.
They're fighting and all this shit. I'm sorry to interrupt, Clamps. Anyway, Robin says, don't just stand there, run. Like, he's having to fucking quarterback this whole thing alone.
This sequence has so many nut shots. Robin hoofs this guy.
That's awesome.
right in the groin there, and then a couple pages later, Batman does it. He's like, "Hey, that worked." Pulls the same move.
How do you keep them down without killing them? Nut shots.
Batman learned that from Wildcat.
Why not? Yeah. And Robin's starting to, get overtaken, and just like in the beginning of the book, whenever scared little boy Bruce turned into the angry Batman, here we have that 4-panel transition again, and the color changes from yellow to red, and then he just goes off.
Yep.
And Robin's like, all right. It's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Oh yeah.
He's like, where you been?
And he did say radical on the other page. So I love the where Batman is after kicking that guy in the junk. The drugs are still having their effect on him, and how that's illustrated is those pink bubbles are floating around his head like a cartoon.
Yes. He's like, it wasn't me, it was the drugs.
And then Batman just lays them all out, and we get that panel, that splash where he's just like, it's almost like he's like a vampire right there, and Robin is like, whoa.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's a beautiful shot.
He gets savage, like
it really is.
And those of us that are parents or whatever, your child is threatened or whatever, you just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just the parent, whatever, will get savage, and then you see him, he returns to whatever, himself with the
his survival instincts kicked in.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
and his
protector,
instincts.
the protector, his cub or his Robin, whatever the hell.
I know it's Bernie Wrightson, but it almost like makes me think this is a Kelly Jones panel right here.
Yeah,
it's like Red Rain.
Yeah.
I think that's also another part of Batman that you see in the beginning, like when he starts eating food, there's a correlation of there's a sense of him being very primitive in order for him to like aid him to survive. Like you see that part where that caveman slaps the saber-tooth on the head, just like Batman's doing the same to get food. It's like he still has that primitive instinct to kind of help him survive, even though he's drugged. Like, this is what helps him subconsciously. What he knows is like what helps him kind of move forward without him even thinking, It's that natural instinct.
Yeah, it's like in Grant Morrison's run where the Zur-En-Arrh Batman is that personality that Bruce had programmed into his mind in the event that he ever gets brainwashed or anything like that he'll revert to just this savage personality inside that will get him out of whatever he's in.
Right, it's like his insurance.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the next part, you've got the is it the National Guard that's coming in to Gotham, setting up martial law. Blackfire's underworld has set up, basically guerrilla warfare traps all over the city and take out the National Guard.
It does not go well.
Yeah, it does not go well. And basically, now they're in control. No doubt. Deacon Blackfire, he's still in his bloodbath celebrating. And you can see it. There's another image of the Gotham Times Square. And now the underworld are, they're celebrating because they've won. Batman and Robin, they've escaped. They've gotten out. They're now trying to set up a rescue, and they walk into a bar to get another nut shot from Robin. Batman takes out a couple of dudes, and then they see on the news that basically Gotham is under martial law and National Guard have pulled out, and things are not looking so good. I like how they call Alfred, and he just somehow finds a way to drive into town.
And my favorite part is that he's not going to pick up Bruce and Jason. He's going to pick up Batman and Robin, and he rolls up in a limo to just drive them back to the house
with a gun in his hand.
Alfred's always prepared.
Alfred fucking guy.
Alfred.
And then he's just like, "Where to, sir?"
Yeah.
Where do you think? 7-Eleven?
Batman's like, "I'm on acid, bro. Help me out."
That was like my Uber ride home at my last birthday party. You guys remember that? I was kicking balls and had to just leave.
No comment. I wasn't there.
Alfred picked you up in a limo with a gun.
Well, the Uber driver and he took me some really weird roundabout way home, and I was sure he was going to kill me, and yeah, it was a whole thing.
Yeah,
that sounds like fun.
No, not at all. I survived it.
What's startling here is, as Batman in the car says, the city belongs to Deacon Blackfire. There's nothing we can do to help. It's all over. We've lost. And Alfred and Robin are like, huh? Wow. So he really is dire straits,
Yeah. The thing is about book 3 is that is such a strong ending. I mean, it's really, you do feel that all is totally lost at this point. So when we begin book 4, I have to say it's the only area of the entire story that I was let down by, was the fact that maybe a week had passed, and they completely gloss over the fact that he had said that it's game over. And we start book 4 with him getting ready to jump into battle again. And I felt it was like kind of lazy writing or a cop-out with the plot. But that's just my opinion.
It's like they got to wrap this up quick.
He does get that final hallucination with his parents, telling them how disappointed they are that they trusted him to take care of the city, and that he's leaving the people to die and all that. But yeah, it's a pretty quick turn from that to okay, I'm on my way back.
Yeah, a little too quick. But I guess they had to, editing and whatnot, make the story tighter.
It's almost like a horror Batman version of A Christmas Carol. He sees the ghost of Gotham past, and he's like, I'm going back. I'm gonna save you.
I'll be good. I'll be good now.
Yeah.
That's true. Good analogy.
But the return to the city to take the city back does give us the first appearance of the Batmobile monster truck.
Right. The thing's a beauty.
Well, we also see Batman and Robin, Bruce Wayne and Jason Todd practicing archery. Not archery. Is it? What is it? Archery's with bows and arrows, right?
Yeah.
Practicing basically shooting, and
with tranquilizers.
You're like, huh? Wow, they're getting serious now.
Yeah, with those darts.
Okay, and this is one thing I wanted to really talk about. And they see in broad daylight a bat flying over, and Jason says, now that's a good omen if I ever saw one. And it immediately takes Bruce back to the crime alley scene. And does this not look like a straight up, almost panel by panel reference to DKR? I actually got out DKR and kind of compared them.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's very similar, very similar.
And some of the shots of them being out in the yard, like you can see the houses over there, and you're seeing Bruce out on the property. That's for me was also reminiscent of Dark Knight Returns.
And Year One too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this held a lot of weight back then in 1988 when you see the origin of him in the alley with his parents, and it's become such a overused trope now that every other issue of Batman you see the pearls falling, and of course I'm exaggerating, but I mean back then
and that's probably because and it's probably because so many of the people that are writing the stuff now grew up with this stuff where it was impactful back then,
right,
and that's what they remember,
right. But it's so overused now.
It makes me wonder if that's an editorial decision that at some way you've got to make one page the Crime Alley PTSD story.
Yeah.
I really think that it's a requirement.
Yeah, and I can understand it being something that they do want to keep represented because every comic is someone's first, right? That you always have to be at the same time that you're catering to the longtime readers, you have to be giving a guiding hand to people who are just coming into it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I know, but it's like, what other book does that though? You don't see in Wolverine, you don't see him, getting adamantium put on his skeleton in every issue. You don't see Daredevil getting hit by a truck in every issue. You don't see Clark Kent, flying.
They're not as big as Batman, though.
They put this in every comic. It's funny sometimes to see how every writer and artist do it and how quickly they can just get it done,
And it's in every movie. Every single movie by each director has done it as well.
Yeah.
You kind of have to. Just like Robin said.
You do? I don't think you do.
Well, you don't have to.
We didn't need to see that in Batman v Superman. That was so unnecessary.
Well,
but it wasn't our first time. Imagine a first-time viewer.
Yeah.
Why is this rich man dressing up as a fucking bat? Why?
Well, just break it down like that Parks and Rec clip that we posted on the Instagram page the other day. Batman, a strong gentleman who fights crime nocturnally.
Children's comic book.
I just finished that series. It's so good.
If anybody has lost their parents for whatever reason, and they think about their parents on a daily, weekly, whatever, monthly basis, and whatever, cancer, this old age, this, that, the other, fine. But if, your parents getting shot down in front of you it's not a common occurrence.
Right.
It's going to stick with you.
And it shows the PTSD that Bruce has, that he keeps coming back to.
You're meant to experience that.
Yeah.
You're meant to experience the PTSD. But,
and one thing that maybe differentiates why you see it so much more often in Batman comics and movies than seeing other characters' origins sort of reiterated is because you can so quickly show where Batman's motivation comes from. You can do it very succinctly in just a couple panels, remind people why he is so determined.
Yeah, I mean, that's all well and true.
We all have parents, we all have families, we all,
We're also talking about an 80-year-old character where the origin has been established. I mean, everybody who knows Batman, and everybody knows Batman, everybody knows that his parents were killed in an alley. So my point is that, do we need to see it in every movie? No, we don't. I don't feel we do.
Here's what I was waiting for. I was waiting when they showed this scene to show that it was actually Deacon Blackfire that was the killer in the alley.
And it didn't happen.
Changing things like all the movies do. That's one of the issues I have with different. Every time a new series of movies comes out, it teaches people some wrong thing. Like, there are so many people out there. There's a generation of people who think that the Joker killed Batman's parents. Yeah. And there's a generation of people who think that Ra's al Ghul trained Bruce to be Batman.
Yeah. Right. Right.
We love you, Tom.
That's one thing I hate. Like when they, tinker with the origin or whatever. Like it's super basic. It doesn't need to be complicated. Like Joe Chill doesn't need to be anybody other than Joe Chill.
Exactly.
But,
and Penguin doesn't need to be, this mutated thing with flippers. Selena Kyle doesn't need to be a supernatural character who literally has 9 lives.
But they did wrap it up, and they showed that, all that Bruce has been dealing with. He says, I always claimed to become the Batman to avenge the death of my parents, to fight crime. That was a lie. I really did it to overcome the fear, which, circling back around to the beginning of the story, as he was descending into fear, he really did it to pull himself out of, his fear of the killer in the alley, his fear of being alone, his fear of, the bats, everything. It's his defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that Deacon Blackfire took away. And why, he literally broke him. Now we got Batman and Robin getting serious, and they're doing all the missile testing, and you see them do the cliche suiting up, getting ready to go to war. I love that. And they're like, time to boogie.
The handshake.
I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, like Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Cue the 80s soundtrack music.
Yeah, it's like Rocky and Apollo Creed running on the beach. And the panel after this, they start jumping and hugging.
Robin's ankle is no, this is ankle. Yeah. Oh god, that's horrible.
And here's another reference from the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan. Because Batman says, I've got one more stop to make first, and he goes to visit Commissioner Gordon in the hospital.
Yeah, like the Dark Knight Rises there.
And he's like, clean that bastard's clock for me, will ya?
Then tell that nurse to clean my bedpan.
Batman, like, I got you, bro.
I really wish we could make like a modern version, use the same art, same story, but then we make our own word balloons.
We could. We have Photoshop.
Dave, I need you to remake all these stories, man.
I have no problem with that.
I think we need to start hashtag Dunk Does Batman.
And tease us too with his Photoshop skills.
Definitely.
Why not?
We got the team.
This vehicle is nuts.
So yeah, Gotham's all locked down. They got the bridges all closed. The military's out there not letting people in. Then we see the first appearance of Monster Truck Batmobile.
With that dome on the top.
Yeah. and a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
What do you think of the size of those tires, though? Like, holy shit.
Like the size of a house.
I'm like, where did he buy those, and who was not suspicious when those came in?
Yeah, what shell corporation did he have to buy those through?
The fucking internet would be complaining about this right now. Like,
of course.
So unrealistic.
Yeah, there's there's no way that there's 20 inches. How can you get 20-foot tires? Like, seriously.
And I like that it says Batman and Robin are back in town and we've returned in style.
What's funny is that you could actually explain away how Batman would get these giant tires. Like, it would be very easy to say he owns some team that does a monster truck, like he owns Gravedigger, and it's because it gives him the ability to buy gigantic parts like this and do it quietly.
At the end of the day, Bruce Wayne owns a shitload of fucking companies, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants. So
I want someone to write into the comics that Bruce Wayne owns Disney.
That would be great.
Mickey Mouse just shows up on a panel out of nowhere, and he's like, "Who the hell are you?"
Lucius Fox totally would have procured these tires for Bruce in the Nolan films.
That's the sign of the times, isn't it? I mean, like in the 80s, people weren't even fucking thinking about it. It's a comic book, whatever.
All of us have been thinking about that since the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, they're blowing people away, but then the little bubble says, like our hand weapons, it fires tranquilizer darts.
Yeah,
200 rounds a minute. 200 rounds of tranquilizer dart a minute. Wow.
Tranquilizer missile
hitting you at that
sleep
speed
for 6 hours.
Tranquilizers.
Yeah, like a tranquilizer at that speed is not going to put you to sleep, all right, but you're not waking the fuck up.
And I mean, like, most tranquilizers take a little bit of time to go into effect. I mean, you got to be like pumping some serious milligrams of juice in them to knock them out immediately. I love it.
It's acid.
Well, Danny says we want to avoid killing anyone if possible.
Yeah.
Strong words, if possible.
Yeah.
You're hitting about like 3 shots per second. So if you hit one person with like 4 of those, what's going to happen?
They're dead.
They just go to sleep. What are you talking about?
You ever go night-night?
And they save one guy. They save one guy because they want him to go back and say, Batman's back.
And then at the bottom, it's like, unlike the army, I'm not afraid to cause a little property damage. And I'm just like, oh God, when BVS came,
White Knight.
No, Man of Steel, they destroyed the city and people were bitching. Like, oh, God. It's a fucking comic book. Jesus. Let it go, guys.
So Batman's basically going through Gotham, tranking every underworlder that he can. They go to this part of town where they've hung all the cops and people, from the light posts.
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I like when there's that panel where the guys have the bazooka, but right before that guy fires the bazooka at them, he fires. You can see him firing a tranquilizer missile that's blasting a hole in the concrete right in front of that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in front of his foot.
It's fucking hilarious. There's homeless people with bazookas and all types of shit.
It's all acid.
Then they roll in Gravedigger into Times Square. They keep showing Times Square a lot.
Yeah, Gotham Square.
It makes me think that he drew that
Gotham
one
Square.
time and then put like one of those clear acetate pages over it and then just kind of drew the characters over that because he didn't want to keep redrawing it.
Batman's hilarious. He says, stand ready. Things are about to get rough. Where the fuck have you been?
Been up in that truck firing sleepy time missiles at people.
They go down inside the cellar and there's, tranking more underworlders, fighting them in hand-to-hand battle. Then we get a big showdown between Batman and Deacon Blackfire in like a pit. And see, I was right. He is Demon Blackfire because he looks like a demon there in that panel.
Yes.
You're right.
Exactly.
That's where I was. Yeah. And Deacon Blackfire tells him that he does really actually have a death wish, and in his mind, that's his way of basically becoming a martyr. He wants Batman to kill him, and Batman.
Well, Gramps, you had brought up the Nolan trilogy earlier. This reminds me of the scene with the Joker in the street, and essentially the Joker wants Batman to run him over.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a martyr for just another parallel between this book and that series.
And that was also in the 89 when he's flying in the Batwing and he's firing at the ground. I don't know why he's firing at the ground. And he just stands there waiting for it to hit him and then just fires one shot at him.
Yeah, and Batman wasn't firing tranquilizers in.
Nope.
No.
Nope, not even close.
And just like in DKR, Batman realizes that, if I defeat and embarrass the leader, the gang is going to, turn on. Yeah. And he kicks the shit out of him. That's like a 9-panel ass whoop right there.
Yeah, step by step.
Uh-oh.
It's
What
happened?
happened?
When the kids show up, when it's like, when you go to jail. I don't know. We've never been to jail, but you get locked up and you watch these movies and it's like, I got to beat the most toughest guy here. Batman does that in 9 panels real quick.
And he says, "May God forgive me, I enjoy it."
Sounds like Dexter.
Yeah, because, he finally comes to his senses and he's like, you know what? He knows he's not going to kill him, but he needs to really make it, an impression on him and release his aggression on what Deacon has, put him through. So the best he can do is just beat the shit out of him and strategically just, implement pain.
Make him look bad.
Exactly.
And all this time I'm wondering, where's Robin in all this? But as we see, there's Jake. He's watching all this, and he's pulling out a gun because he knows that Deacon is losing, and he's like, "Say goodbye, Batman." And he's about to pull the trigger, but then here comes one of those tranq darts to the neck of Jake, and Robin's been watching his back the entire time.
Jake is down.
And then they essentially leave him to die.
Well, the underworlders turn on him. Yeah,
because Batman was like, I can't do anything with this. I can't. I'm not gonna jump into here. I'm not gonna survive if I jump in.
Robin's ready to get down, and Batman said, "There's nothing we could do." Yeah, quitter. Get in there. Save his life.
Can't or won't.
He's like, "No, we good."
And then Batman has one final act. He wants to not only defeat the cult, but he wants to defeat the symbol of Deacon Blackfire, and goes to the totem and blows it up. That's the end of the book.
Yeah, he burns it.
Yeah, well, that's what started everything for him, because it was like that's what changed him, and that's what made him follow Deacon Blackfire. And he's like, "Oh wait, this is only 4 foot tall, not the 30-foot thing that I saw when I was on acid. Let me just make sure this doesn't happen to me again. Let me just trash it."
It also kind of shows that, he's a little superstitious too, because he says, "I know it's just a hunk of old wood, but I don't care. There's some things in life you just don't take chances with." Because, there was some kind of supernatural element to Deacon Blackfire, right?
Sure.
We really actually don't even see him die. I think he was brought back in a couple of later stories. I'm not sure.
That was going to be my next question. Does he return in the comics?
Yeah.
He does
he was in Detective recently.
Yeah. But after this was published, did he appear in the 90s at all?
I think he came around at some point, but he's been used real sparingly.
Right.
Most people really only know him from Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
Certainly an interesting character. Just like with, we mentioned Ra's al Ghul. He's one of those characters that he twists people's minds to follow him because he sees himself as a savior, or convinces them that he's a savior and he can make what's right, what's wrong with the world. There's that philosopher Albert Camus who has this famous quote that says, "The welfare of humanity is always the alibi of tyrants."
Mm-hmm. Well, look at Raj or Raish, whatever, compared to Demon Blackfire, where Raish is, he's very ideological, and he, his desire to kill humanity to save the planet is a sort of a twisted altruism, where Deacon Blackfire is just like this kind of low-rent thug who, came to power without even realizing that he could. Two very, very different people.
But the methods he uses to convince these people to follow him is what his twisted ideology is, what he uses, and he uses people's weaknesses against them.
Right.
Here's a guy that, hey, I can fix things that are going wrong in your life if you'll just follow me.
Right. Right. MAGA. Trump 2020.
Yeah. That's it.
Well,
it's more. It's like most politicians or most religious figures. It's like, hey guys, follow me. Everything's gonna be all right if you do what I tell you to do. And then you have, like, similar to the book, you have these cults that tell you the same thing. It's like, let me sleep with your wives and your daughters or whatever. But in this sense, Batman got caught because he was weak at this moment, and Luckily, Batman, like we notice in most of his past stories, he has this plan where in his mind he understands where it's like it's a dream or it's something's wrong, and he can snap himself out of it, like he did here. But
yeah, it shows,
most regular people can't figure it out.
Right.
You're right. I mean, he got caught slipping because he saved, a hot dog vendor. It always comes back to hot dogs, but he saved a hot dog vendor from some punks, but then he didn't realize that there was a third punk that shot him in the back. And that's how the underworlders, dragged him down below.
Well, guys, if there's one takeaway I have from this podcast was that I need to change my IG handle. Got to rebrand myself here.
Colt's going to disappear again.
Good.
Don't do that, please.
All right, so let's give it a rating system. Tease us.
How many hot dogs?
I'm giving it a solid 4 out of 5.
Okay, we got 4.
Yeah, maybe 4.5. I felt like story-wise and art, it was on point. Like I said before, to me, like the colors really helped navigate the story even more than the words. So I was very intrigued by that, and I would like to see. It would be amazing if Deacon came back in a second story. The story ended very open-ended, and I feel like he could be revisited in 20 years, or more, obviously.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Robin, out of 5 Timmy Hortons, what do you give it?
I go with 4 too. It's a well-written story. It's obviously been very influential. It came out at a key time. The only thing that brings it down at all for me is there are points where it's not really the fault of the creators, but there are parts where some of the lingo and things like that just date it for me and remind me that I'm reading something from the 80s. But aside from that, top notch.
Cult of the Batman.
I would say 4.5 out of 5. Half a pint off for the issue I brought up earlier with you guys was the segue from issue 3 to issue 4. There was that kind of blip there, which I didn't find believable with him just after a week, ready to just jump back in, almost pretty much recovered, which didn't make sense. Other than that, back in the day, Robin, that lingo was dated in 88, and I remember reading it in 88 and thinking, God, this is corny. They wouldn't talk like this. So that's always been an issue as well. So points off for that. So 4.5 for me.
4.5. That's still really high.
Yeah, it's a great
played.
Yeah, well, it's a great book.
Dunk. How many Michael Jordan free throw line dunks do you give this?
Oh man, I'm gonna go along with the 4. Similar to what everyone else has said. It's a really good read. A lot going on. A lot of differences when it comes to the Batman character going to the 80s. A lot of similarities to DKR. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really good read, and I'm gonna stick to a 4 out of 5. There's nothing else I can say that anyone else hasn't said yet.
All right, Grumps, what you got, man?
I'm gonna go with 4 out of 5. 4 Grumps out of 5.
Okay.
I'm not a huge Bernie Wrightson guy. I think I enjoyed the colors more than the pencils.
Yes.
And some of the similarities to DKR, which I didn't realize, to be honest, took away slightly. But it's just amazing. Even I read it, again today, and after talking with you guys for the last hour or whatever, I've enjoyed it even more. So I'll go with 4 out of 5.
Solid. Vigilantes and villains, what you got, man?
I would have to give it a good 5.
5.
Yeah. Reason being is because I'm just a little bit biased on my end because I like to read these Elseworld, different types of Batman stories that really nobody else is reading and that no one pays attention to anymore. That's kind of what interests me. It always did, always will. I don't know why. It's just how I'm made up, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. It's like the villain was different. It wasn't your typical everyday, two-faced Joker, and I emphasize Joker because he's in every single Batman book possible. And even in this one, he was in there for a second. But I'm just happy enough that there was a good, solid villain that potentially could come back and be canon at some point currently. It's just like those 90s characters or late 80s characters that are completely irrelevant just drop off and no one ever hears from them again. And they're pretty good. They have a good background, a good origin story, and they could always be used again. Other than that, there's really nothing else more I could really say about the book.
5 out of 5, that's like a all-time classic then, huh?
Yeah, for me, absolutely. Like I said, Starlin, it was a guy that I totally underestimated. And I just associated him with Thanos and him being in space and being all trippy and writing about like all this mystical stuff. And that's kind of why I disregarded the whole fact of just never picking up anything by Starlin until one of the Bat Force members, Grumps, was like, yeah, you gotta read about Starlin. He's good. And then, it opened up my mind, thankfully enough. I was like, wow, this guy understands the Batman pretty well.
Yeah.
So let me see what else he did. And then I saw the Cult, and I was been meaning to pick it up for a long time. And then you guys are doing the review, and I was like, all right, it's time to pull the trigger.
Well, I'm glad you did. 5 out of 5. Wow, that's a home run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Graham? What do you give it?
What do I get it? Okay. Well, I think this is a story that has a lot of rereadability. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why not?
Sure.
And like I said,
Yes.
I think Robin might have said it. If you read this and then DKR, it's almost like, I think that they fall in the same vein and right up my alley for what I like to see. And this one had a lot of like horror elements that you don't see in a lot unless you pick up some Kelly Jones, Red Rain, and all that horror stuff, which I really enjoyed. I would love to see this in like an absolute version or
for sure
a black and white noir version. I'm going to go with a 4.25.
Ooh, okay.
4.25. I mean, that's kind of the consensus average right there.
Yeah.
This is like, to me, I think one of the most underappreciated, and to me, it's almost like right up there with some of the best Batman titles of all time, but you don't hear a lot of fanfare about it. And
I wanted to ask you why, I'm really happy that you chose it, and I want to know why you chose it.
Same here.
I wanted to see what other people thought about it. I chose it because it had a lot of strong relevancy to society today, as much as it did back then. But also, I just think it's one of those books that a lot of people don't know about it, and they need to be introduced to, this style of Batman.
Right.
When people read a book like this, they see how, this ties into, the modern versions of Batman, and then also the movies that, a lot of these movies pull off from.
Right.
Could you do a book like this today and get away with it, or would the internet lose its mind?
Man, that'd be tough. I think it'd have to be a Black Label book.
Yeah, it would totally.
I think
Black Label.
I think you could, but it's like similar to the '80s. I don't think people will understand it until later on.
I think they'd tear it to pieces if you attempted something like this today.
I know, especially, with some of they don't even mask it. There's, some bigotry in there, that, between the pimp and then Ratface and all that stuff. And, they would eat that alive. But that's actually, it's not representative of, the writer or the artist's points of view and beliefs. It's just a mirror of society.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, that
definitely.
was absolutely New York at that point of time. Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't walk through Times Square. It was just, that's the way it was. Call to the Batman could attest to that. Well, I mean, just not for, for whatever reason, but that's just the way it was back then.
Yeah, man, it was. It was. I was coming to the city when I was a kid, in the late 70s, and I remember walking around with my parents and feeling really unsafe.
Yeah.
It's just what it was.
I grew up right across the river, and my parents never brought me into New York until about I don't know, I was in high school, so 2002. Anything before that?
Gone,
yeah, exactly. My mom thinks New York today is the same as it was in the 90s or the 80s. So it's like, to get my mom into Manhattan, like, I had to be next to her because she's still scared that's the way it is. And I'm like, Mom, are you kidding me? But she's like, oh, you have nothing to worry about. For my mother to be around, I'm like, I'm gonna guard the hell out of her. But she knows, she still has that fear of how bad it was back in the 80s when she first got here in the 70s, which is nuts, and she still has that fear. And that's just funny how we're reading a book how fear enables people, and here's my mom, the same thing. Like, the fear enables her from actually enjoying what the city is now today.
Okay, that concludes our review of Batman the Cult, written by Jim Starlin, art by Bernie Wrightson, color artist Bill Ray, with lettering by John Costanza, published by DC Comics. This title is another in a long list of recommended reading and influential stories that help shape the mythos of the Dark Knight as we know him today in the comics and on-screen film adaptations. Thank you for tuning in to Bat Force Radio.